All right, so we are recording. Be nice, everyone, and I'll try to myself. Okay, so yes, I will share the link to this recording to everyone who pre-registered and anyone who hasn't and sends me a link, an email saying they want it. Winlink. I don't know the whole history of it. I do know it's aggravating because it runs on Windows only. There keep being rumor about Mac versions and Android versions, but it isn't there yet. So it is Windows only. I guess why the name Win. When you first set it up, you will be presented with this, where you enter your call sign. And if you don't have a password already, it will then bring you to a register screen. You have to have your call sign registered with Winlink in order to send and receive. The rest of it is vaguely optional, but you might as well fill it in. You will then be able to receive emails via Winlink, or messages, I should say. Let's not call them emails. Messages via Winlink to your call sign and from your call sign. You can also, as you will possibly in deployments, add tactical call signs, which is like Red Cross Shelter 1 or Missouri 5 or whatever. You can add it here and register it, and it will allow you then to receive and send messages using that tactical. It's an option when you're filling out the form to use your regular or a tactical. But normally you would just use your call sign to send and receive. Any questions so far with this screen? Good. So this is the main screen that you will see. You've got all the quick icons right about here, like to create a new message, or you can do it through a menu drop down along up here. Creating a new message is, and this is where you would send from tactical or other call signs if someone's sharing your workstation. You would create a new message. You can also change from who it's from right here. If you have a tactical, you would be using that. You'll be sending it as a Winlink message. You will fill out 2. You can either bring up your pre-saved message list, which you can see I don't use, or just type it in. You can type in a call sign directly. And if it's a registered call sign, Winlink will figure it out. Or you can type in an email address. And it'll send to that. If everyone will mute their audio, please, while they're not asking a question, I think that'll help. Because as we get more and more people, even the smallest background noise starts digging in. Again, to the people who are still just joining, please update your display name to be first name and call sign, because we're going to need this as we get into the hands-on portion. So that's how you create a message. You can put attachments in. You can add a subject line. It's very email-ish. Your old-time programmers will recognize that because it's in the Kernighan and Reese book, which no longer is used, but ancient. Once you get it the way you want it, you can then post to Outbox. You can do spell checks when you create the message. You can use templates, which we'll get back into. You can also have custom templates. This is the DeKalb County Aries template that we use for each week. And we will get back into these as we get into the FLMSG stuff. But right now, I'm just showing you basic Winlink. And I will post to Outbox. So notice my Outbox just increased by 1. Mm-hmm. And this is the message to be sent. To send it, there are a couple different ways. For the class, for right now, we will use Telnet, because you don't have to have a radio hooked up. It's quick, just bang. But you can also do Packet, Winlink, Practor, Winmore, a variety of other ways to send. Now, I also have Packet in place using my VHF, and I'm using Sound Modem as my modem software. I like it because A, it works, but B, it has a nice little debug trace of everything that the receiver is getting. So I can see other digipeaters, other servers, and what have you, as well as the low level of my messages. But any sound card, any sound software will work if you're VHF and UHF. But for right now, we're just going to practice with Telnet sessions. Any questions so far?
That the same as Telnet post office?
Yes. I believe that's what I've been told. Believe it or not, I am not an expert on this either. I've just used it a good bit in the ways that I'm going to be showing you, but that's what I've heard.
On my drop-down list, that's the only thing that says Telnet. So
no, all the way at the very, very, very top.
Yes, thank you. I see it.
Okay.
So anybody?
Okay. And there is some good information going by. Yes, I am going to cover attachments as we get into, especially in the next one, but there's some good information and questions going by in the chat window. So I don't know if you folks have it open to the side, but it's good. Yeah, I've heard registering Winlink has gone to $25. It used to, or $24. It used to be free. I am sorry they're charging that. It's up to you to determine whether you'd want to do it or not, depending on how often you use Winlink. I use it weekly, at least for our check-ins, usually multiple times weekly, so I'd pay it. But I didn't realize it had gone to 24 until someone told me in my last class. Okay, so here we are so far. Any questions on what I've shown so far? I'm kind of going fast. Create a new message here or here.
Mm-hmm.
Fill out the message.
Mm-hmm.
2 can be a call sign, and that was or it can be a full-fledged email address. You can put attachments on. We'll get there in the second half of the 10 o'clock conference. You can use templates. So for instance, there's a whole bunch of pre-canned templates and it'll keep updating. American Red Cross. When you use a template, it pops open in an HTML window that whoever created the template will have put in. This is a mirror image of the forms American Red Cross use. You can fill out all this information here, and then at the bottom when you're done, do a submit, and that automatically gets added as an attachment to the message you're sending. So there are templates you can use, custom ones you can use. You can add more attachments either here or here. And then when you get done, you can just go ahead. Whoop, I didn't have anything, so this is not a post. Post it to the outbox and it will go here. To start a transmit session, pick the method you want. We're using Telnet, which is all the way up at the top of the list, and press open a session. Yeah, hello. Of course it's not working. Oh, no, it's not over here. Yeah, it opened up on my other screen. Sorry about that. At which point, for now, there are other things we're going to get to later, but for now, just press start. It connects, it sends, and it gives you a summary of how many messages it sent and then how many it received. And that's it. And you should always see the disconnected at the end to show you that it's really done. That message did send. Eventually, it's going to wander over to my email box. My Outlook updates every once in a while.
Yeah, this is Tom in N3XMB. I've been following along and I'll hit the start button on the Winlink, the Telnet Winlink session, and all I get is connecting to a CMS, and eventually it'll flip over saying that the server is not available. What do I have set up wrong?
Nothing, because that's not configurable. Your call sign is registered, right?
As far as I know, I got the registration number and popped that back into Winlink itself.
Okay. I don't know, honestly, because there's nothing that the user would configure. You can probably change it somewhere, but it's all automatic.
There's no connection to Winlink Telnet CMS 0 at, it gives date and time. No CMS Telnet server available.
Huh. There must be some internet routing problem from you to one of the servers, because I just connected one. I don't know which one this is.
I watched you pop up real quickly.
And
May want to keep trying.
the computer does have to be connected to the internet.
Oh yeah, it's there.
And I'm going to repeat myself because I see some new people have joined. Hello. Please edit your display name to be your first name and call sign, because we're going to be needing it. Whitelist email addresses. I have not used whitelist. So Mike, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, KC3GEM, Mike. I just remember vaguely in setting this up that there was something about you had to either send to someone before you could receive from someone or something like that, it's kind of a filtered system. I don't know if anybody else is familiar with that.
I can tell you that that's not been the case for me. I send to different people that I've never talked to all the time.
And do they send back? I mean, do people that you haven't sent to send back to you, or?
Yeah.
I just totally
Mhm.
off?
During
Okay.
the drills and things, we get messages back and forth from people we haven't talked to.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Like I said, it was vague in my mind, so that's fine.
I'm not sure you would set it.
Let me see if I can do that. Yeah. I wasn't sure if that was for the host or me.
You can send a message to
I don't know if you saw it, but there
Winlink,
was another
and
one too.
you put in the title.
Okay. Okay.
Everyone who's not talking to the group, please mute, because we're getting some background chat.
The way to whitelist
No comment. No comment.
is to send a message to the server. I forget exactly how you do that. And the subject is something. And then in the body of the message, you type something else. So this is all outlined in one of the help places under in the program.
Yeah.
Please mute your phone, your microphone if you're not talking to the group. Sounds like somebody's on the phone.
Jim, this is Reiner, N2PEZ. I think in the documentation it says, in order to prevent spam going to Winlink addresses, if an email is coming from outside Winlink, you must put //WL2K in the subject line, or else it won't transmit. But it will transmit to someone who Winlink has already received the message from. So that's my understanding.
That has not been my experience, because I've never ever done that, and I'm sending to new people both to Winlink addresses as well as outside all the time. I will try to research that and see if I can find anything else.
Jim, Steve,
Yes.
N4TTY, can I add?
Go ahead.
From my understanding and the way I've seen it work, having used this now for years, is that from within Winlink, if you send an email, let's say you were to send an email from Winlink to my personal address, in other words, n4tty@awrl.net, that gets added to your whitelist, because they figure but it gets added automatically because the thinking is that, well, if you're mailing it to me, then you would probably accept it coming back.
Ah,
But
that
if
could
you
very
had,
well be.
but if you had not done that, okay, let's say you had never communicated with my personal email from within Winlink. If I was then to try to send from my personal email, try to send to your call sign at winlink.org, it would be rejected because your whitelist did not contain my email address. Now, I think the other gentleman who I couldn't understand real well was trying to say something, but it was a muffled sound. There is a way that you can manually add things if you want, but the easiest way, at least I found, because I used to add them manually, but since they instituted this new thing, is I always just at least send one message to the people I normally communicate with to their personal email address before they ever try sending me one. That way they're in my whitelist. Does that help?
That helps immensely because I never even knew that was taking place under the covers. And it sounds like that gentleman was saying there is a way where you could send to me cold, but put something specific in the subject line that would automatically register you. So I'm not familiar with that. Thank you. I'm learning. Thank you. Yes. Ron, if you would please turn off your video. We have a lot of folks online and not everyone has the bandwidth to handle that much video. Thank you. Okay. So, yes.
This is Janice. I'm new.
Welcome.
Thank you. Kalo Charlie 3, Oscar Hotel, Oscar Romeo Hotel. If you send a message to someone in Winlink, if they respond, will it automatically come back because you sent it, or do they have to be on this white screen?
Whitelist.
Whitelist first?
From the way it was just described, because I sent to you first, you've been automatically added to my whitelist so that when you respond, I get it. This is all automatic, so I didn't even know it was happening. So yes, they can respond right away.
Thank you.
And Jim, the whitelist only has to do with outside email addresses. If you send to somebody using winlink.org, they obviously could have sent to you, even if you'd never sent to them using winlink.org. Because
you're all registered internally. Which brings up a good question. I didn't point that out. You can just do the call sign of the person if they're registered. And that actually works. Full would be at winlink.org. So that will work, but also so will just the call sign. And that could be the call sign, or it could be a registered tactical address if you're out on a deployment. So when discard.
Hey, Jim. Tom, WW3TRG. I can hear you, but I don't hear the person asking the question. I guess you have them muted. So we're not hearing their questions. So if you could repeat the question or.
Sure. Did everyone just hear that statement? Everyone should hear everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard it.
I heard it.
I heard it.
Because there's not a setting that I have that says only I can hear questions and no one else.
KC3GM, I think maybe sometimes you're responding to chat.
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear. Okay, and responding to chat. Got it. Thank you. I'm assuming people have chat windows open, but maybe these are all private. Okay, sorry about that if it's chat. So when I was doing some sends, it automatically looked to see if there's anything coming to me also. So you can see that I'd picked up 2 new messages, and I just go to my inbox and click on the message that I want to see. And there you go. And you can see it was downloaded through a telnet session, which is what I did, and who it's from, who it's to, and the time. If there were attachments, I could view attachments, I can forward and what have you. Now, what we have just talked about, and hello Hunter, how are you? If you would please turn off your video, we're going to have a lot of people on these chats and not everyone has the bandwidth. Thank you. Nice hat. Okay, that's the basics right now. I will show you So I'm going to go ahead, send a Winlink message from me, post it to the outbox. This time I'm actually going to do packet Winlink. Now I am not an HF person. I have not tried it over HF yet. I need to, but I haven't. So I'm actually using a VHF and or a UHF radio set up to be for Winlink, and it's on this one of the frequencies in my local area of the servers. We have probably 3 in Atlanta. This just happens to be one of them. Oops, I don't want that frequency. I want that frequency. So I have Winlink talking to a sound modem program. In this case, it's literally a sound modem, but something has to create the modem tones for sending and receiving, encode and decode. This is then sent out, in my case, to an external hardware codec in the form of a signal link USB box that when plugged in shows up as audio codecs. So I have to select these that I want to use. It is very common to forget this step, and you end up sending out through your speakers, and you get blown away by the modem tones, and then it tries to receive through the microphone. So if you're using a USB connected external codec, make sure you have them selected in your software. And then I can just go ahead and open a session. I have it now using the local server in my Winlink server in my area on this frequency that I'm using. There are different servers that you could use. If one is not close to you, you can use a digipeater, which is kind of like a relay station. You can string it up for 3 of them long. 2 is the default, and 1 is usually all you need. But I can hit the server directly, and I do a start. Notice it's taking a little bit longer, and you can see what's actually being sent out over the air. Oh, sorry, I was playing. This is the wrong server. Stop. I was trying some simplex work yesterday. Hang on just a minute. Love it when you do a demonstration and then completely forget. There we go. There we go. Now I'm connected. So I'm actually doing this now over VHF. And you can see actually what's going out. And then this little waterfall display is very good in the HF. You can see if you're centered on the frequency back. So it's a lot slower when you're using RF. And it's even a little bit slower using HF.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yes, it is. When you're trying to do a lot of message clearing, but sometimes you have no choice.
Jim, may I ask a question?
Yes.
KC3KAG, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If there's someone else that's currently connected, will your message just sit and wait, or will it be rejected and you have to resend it?
This is at the messaging protocol at the lower levels. It can theoretically interleave messages, but typically it automatically backs off and will wait and queue up. But it doesn't have to wait for your whole other person's session to completely complete. It's just when there's a break, you'll get in and there will be some interleaving up to the capacity of the server.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the time it took to send the whole message to get the official disconnect. That's why during the class, I tried to have everyone use a telnet session, but I wanted you to see what it would look like using RF. Is there a tutorial? Yeah, no. Yes and no. There's not a tutorial. There are lots of tutorials, and that's because there's probably a half dozen different sound modems with different settings for that, and then there are different codecs and ways you connect up to your radio. So you go find YouTube, just do a search to try to find the tutorials that match the equipment that you're using. In my particular case, as an example, my signal link, which is an external box, plugs in USB to the laptop, looks like two codecs that I then tell my sound modem to use, plugs into my ICOM 880 with just one cable in the back. It's set up specifically for digital communications. Many other radios don't have that, so you have to use two cables, an audio cable plugging into your external speaker, and then a microphone cable that gets the microphone and push to talk. All these are slightly different settings, which is why there's not a single tutorial. How do you delete the sent message? Sent items, here we go. You can just edit your mailbox, your sent items folder to delete them or save them, or you can actually move them to other folders you can create if you have a special chat that you want to keep those messages. How do I go to a packet Winlink? Back up here on the main screen, before I open the session, I have to say what kind of session, and I just did packet. We're going to be using telnet at the very, very, very top for this class, but there are a lot of other connections too. Back to why there's not a single tutorial. There's too many. It's a Swiss Army knife. Okay. Can you send a packet with a radio mic and not through a USB port if you don't have one? Probably. I think there's probably, you could hook up to your, if your laptop has an audio in and out for microphone and speaker, you probably could connect that to your radio and not necessarily use a codec, but that would require you then to use your speakers and microphone. I have not done that, but I would see no reason that shouldn't be done, and there's probably someone somewhere that has a tutorial. It's just a lot easier to use a box like SignalLink or something else, but it's completely optional. Okay, any other questions? Because I'm zooming. Literally and figuratively, I guess.
This is Dick, W4NWD. I just wanted to mention that you can select whether to send messages out or receive messages first. That comes in handy sometimes when you don't want to tie your machine up and you've got a message that you really need to get out.
I saw that somewhere. Do you remember where that is so I can show them? I know it's there somewhere.
I'm going to have to look for it, but
yeah, it's not something you do normally. It's a Swiss Army knife. You can do a lot of different things if you know where to look. But yes, you can prioritize receiving, like if you were doing a central location, you'd want to get all the inbound because you're going to have more before it's sent out any queued, or you can just do transmit first and then receive. And if there's nothing to transmit, obviously it'll keep going out. What I have been showing you so far is if you have a server in the middle. Now let me bring up one of my favorite little diagrams, which of course is right there. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. This is what we're going to be talking about a little bit further into our meeting or class, but here we are, the radio operator using Winlink. What we have been doing is going through a Winlink server, which is more than just a repeater. It actually processes the messages and determines what to do. And in our demonstrations, it's been going out an internet connection to the email box of the average recipient. It can also be another radio operator using Winlink down here and receiving it through the air. Okay, so that would be if I'm doing a peer-to-peer. But as long as I'm addressing it to an email address and or the call sign, it will still go out to the internet and then come back when the person logs in to retrieve their email. We can also do peer-to-peer, one Winlink operator straight to another Winlink operator. And we can do it in one hop, or we can do it in multiple hops if they're digipeaters. Just a simple, I receive the message, I don't do anything to it other than turn around and retransmit it on the same frequency, causing a link from one system to the next, and you do different hops. So there are a lot of different ways to address the message. I could even use a digipeater in the middle here. If I can't get to this server directly, I would go to that server through the digipeater. No, that's not what I want. Packet, open session. And I would specify that. This is the server I want to go to. In my case, I can hit it directly. But if I couldn't, I could use one or more digipeaters in the middle that just repeat my message from me to the eventual server. So this is a peer-to-peer. It is a science unto itself. Maybe magical, I'm not sure. When I create a message, I need to change this to be peer-to-peer. So that's the first difference, and it's one that's easily forgotten. Goes to the outbox the same way. When I open session, I have to switch it to a peer-to-peer session, because the protocol used to actually exchange the messages are different, as you might imagine, trying to go from one person directly to another than it is trying to talk to a server. So when you're doing peer-to-peer, you have to create the message as a peer-to-peer, and you have to send it as a peer-to-peer. Okay, switch back. Now the other person has to be in peer-to-peer mode also, but that's not a problem. I mean, they will just set up as a peer-to-peer, and you can exchange directly. Why is that useful? Well, I should have left the picture. In a disaster, depending on where you are, your servers may not be around, or the server may not have access to internet. You know, it has a generator that keeps the server and the radio up, but it can't go to the internet, so it can't take your normal messages. So then it just becomes usually a digipeater. So you will have to, in a large area disaster, send directly through simplex mode. It's also the way you would use it when you're doing HF, is a peer-to-peer, mostly. There are HF servers. If you can hit them, that's fine. And in that case, it works just like this server, just using HF instead of VHF or UHF. WinMore is the protocol for HF that is built in, but you can also use other things like FLDigi to send the message. In that case, you're not really using Winlink. But if you're using Winlink, WinMore is one of the popular just about the most popular way to send messages. So any other questions?
Is there a limit on the size or number of attachments?
Probably. I know it works for 3. I haven't done anything above that. I'd have to research that, or you'd have to go do a search, unless someone knows. A real frustrating question just got asked that I wish I had an answer to. How do I find out about digipeaters? There are groups that are trying to have all the digipeaters on a map. Like for Aries, I know, has tried to do overlays for just digipeaters, Winlink servers and things, and you can look on the map and just try to find the ones that are on a particular frequency that you can build a chain to the final recipient. But that is not always the case. You're probably going to have to ask your friends in your area if they know about digipeaters and build your own database.
Are you talking to somebody?
Hey, again, please mute your mic if you're not talking.
Okay, no, I'm not. I'm just hearing. Why? What's up?
Please mute your mic. Trying to find who it is and don't see it off the hand, but too many people. Okay, so summary. You create messages. I can use a template out of the global template, or I can just use text, or I can attach other messages and forms and documents. I address it to either the call sign of another registered Winlink user, or I can address it to a full-fledged internet email box, or I can address it to a tactical username if it's being used and registered. Normally, I would send it as a Winlink message, but if I do peer-to-peer, I would change it here. Okay. I would then post that message to the outbox right here. You can spell check and do other things. It will show up in your outbox. I can't send this because it was a peer-to-peer and I'm not using it, so I'm going to delete that at the moment. Once I have one or more messages in the outbox, or I just want to see if there's anything waiting for me to be received, I will then open a session. What kind of session? You select it here. For our class, go all the way to the top. We're using Telnet. Probably can figure out how to mute everyone, but I don't know where.
So if you go to the participants list,
yep,
you'll be able to see the.
Oh yeah, but it's long enough, and I just kind of scanned, and I didn't see. There's a mute all at the bottom. Huh?
Yeah.
Click. There. Am I still working? I hope. Yes. Okay. I can see. Thank you. I've forgotten doing that. I have not done such a big class, so I normally don't have to worry, but thank you very much. So open a session. What kind of session? I select it. I can use Telnet. I can use Packet, Winmore, a lot of other different ways, and it selects different protocols, but we're using Telnet. I then open a session. If I can just then start. I'm now connecting over the internet to a mail server. And it looks like maybe it's a busy time for these mail servers because normally I would be done by now. But it'll go through the whole thing, send whatever you've got, receive anything waiting. There is a way to prioritize which you do first, send all first or receive all first. There we go, finally made it. So that's the case of, I think the servers were busy. And you can see I had none to send, but I did pick up another one on receive, and I'm disconnected. Yeah, it said I had received, so maybe it's still processing. And it should show up what I received in my inbox. There we go. Yes, got a bunch of them. From different people. You'll be able to see if there's attachments. You can open them. You can delete them. You can create personal folders and move them there. It becomes much more like an email box at that point. Hello, everyone. If you would please turn off your video. We're going to have a lot of people, and they don't necessarily all have the bandwidth to handle video. So please turn off your cameras. Also, if you will please edit your host name, your display name, under the More, you select yourself, More, Rename. Rename yourself to be your first name and call sign. We're going to be needing that later on in the class. Thank you very much. Okay. If you're doing peer-to-peer, you've got to create it as a peer-to-peer message. And then when you open a session, you've got to send it here. Excuse me, switch to peer-to-peer, send it as peer-to-peer. Send it to the addressee directly, or you can send it to them using up to 2 digipeters, which just repeat your message to that person, and you've got to be responsible for knowing which digipeters to use, which is you have to know your area.
Jim, this is Sam, Whiskey 1 Sierra Mike Foxtrot.
Yes.
It looks like on the list of sessions at the lower grouping, it has Telnet P2P. Does that default everything to be peer-to-peer, do you know?
I have not tried that because I rarely do P2P, mainly just on practice drills.
Gotcha.
I would tend to think, just looking at it and with the selections, well, it doesn't make any sense because a Telnet is not P2P. Telnet radio? I don't know. I'd have to look that up, or you'd have to do some searching.
Thank you.
This is Emily, N1DID. Yeah, you can peer-to-peer Telnet always. That's been the way things have been since the beginning of the internet. But since this is a radio exercise, aren't we supposed to be using radios?
Yes, that's probably why I've never tried Telnet P2P.
Yeah, there you go.
Makes sense, yeah. Why not address it to somebody directly? You have to, I guess, know their IP address or somewhere, I guess still the email address, and we'll just resolve it directly through DNS.
Yeah, you have to know the IP address, and they have to have it open in their firewall. The other thing is that you should be using Telnet at all anyway, right? You should be using radios.
Yes, I would agree with you. However, I know in my cabin up in North Carolina, I don't have an HF up there, and there are no digipeters, so I always check my mail through Telnet. But yes, for any kind of deployment, certainly radio. That's the whole, I mean, this is a ham radio. Okay, hello people joining. Please turn off your video, your cameras. We're going to have 100 people, and not everyone has the bandwidth to be able to handle the video along with the screen sharing. So if you would turn off your video, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so we're officially starting on the next phase, which will be the training class, but I'm going to wait a few minutes to let people have time to join. Any questions so far?
I have some speculation on the question about peer-to-peer Telnet. If you were to do peer-to-peer Telnet, I assume that you would need the servers to do that. It wouldn't just literally go from one computer to the other.
No, peer-to-peer Telnet would be one computer to the other across the internet as opposed to RF.
And it
No
does
server
do
in
that?
the middle.
It does do that?
Yeah, that's, I haven't tried it, but that's exactly what that setting here implies.
Okay. And not a feature I was aware of.
This is a Swiss Army knife. There are more blades in this knife than you can imagine. So I'm always learning all kinds of new things. Hello to everybody. Again, please turn off your camera. We're not doing video because not everyone has the bandwidth to handle 100 videos along with the class.
This is N1DID. If we watch the video that you put on, I think it was on Google, if we watch that, do we really need to take this class? I can free up bandwidth by not taking it.
There are some gotchas that I get into that is not in that video, but basically, no, you don't have to. And I'm going to.
Oh, okay, I did have one quick question about the video, though. I still don't understand the. I still don't understand the